yeah. The corner singer on the mic, yeah. To the new view, let's go. I might not be able to see you, but you can see me with your mind, baby. Even though you may have sight, you should know that I am blind, baby. So don't judge me, get to know me. Don't rush, just take it in slowly. I could do much more than you know. I can open your mind with my eyes closed. Eyes closed, mind open. Come into my world and let me change your view of me. Eyes closed, mind open. Come into my world and let me change your view of me.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Eyes Closed, Mind Open. I am your host, Hannah Kinsey. Don't forget it. And today we have the incomparable Leigh Tomlin in the house.
Hello.
Oh, okay. Sorry. We're in rare form today, everybody. Just be prepared. I had a cup of coffee at 4:30 in the afternoon, which you should never do, but I did. And so, yeah.
Some days are like that.
Some days you just need that extra go-go juice in the afternoon, evening, whatever. Do y'all call it afternoon or evening at 4:30? More evening.
Yeah, early evening, I'd say.
But anyhow, I invited Leigh on this episode to just kind of talk about how Eyes Closed, Mind Open came into being. I mean, it was kind of her brainchild. I thought it would be good for her to talk about what inspired her to get this podcast rolling, because though I host it, it wasn't me. It was not me. So first, I'm just going to let Leigh tell a little bit about herself, what she does at New View, and then we'll go from there.
All right, sounds good. As Hannah said, I'm Leigh Tomlin. I'm the enrichment program person here at New View. So art, music, podcast, dance, a little bit of this and that. So in answer to your question, as far as the podcast, I look at part of my job is also getting to know everyone in the building, and Possibilities happens to rent space in the New View building, which is really awesome. And so it's just a matter of talking to people and finding out kind of what they do, the communities that they serve. And since we actually do a lot of stuff with Possibilities already, I thought, and that Possibilities offers the podcast workshop, I thought, this would be really great. And then I talked to everyone else in the building, and I would talk to people down at Douglas. And I'm like, hey, because podcasts are great because you can reach a larger audience. And I was like, hey, what would you guys think about having a podcast about being blind and low vision in Oklahoma City, or just in general? And, and I started having conversations with people, because I think it's really, because I know personally for me, being a sighted person, I have learned a lot just from working here, and just things that we sighted people take for granted, and just learning more about descriptive language and all that. And then just the fact that, it's good to try everything as far as I'm concerned in the arts. It's great to try it all. It won't resonate with everybody, but I think that it's good to at least try. And I thought a podcast would be a really great way to reach a lot of people. And so that's kind of how it got started. And then we did do the podcast workshop with Possibilities, because, so we had people from Classen, people from down at Douglas, and people from Tinker. So it's a collective of voices. And because as you all talked about in a previous episode, blindness is a spectrum. And I think that it's really great to have everyone come in and talk about stuff. And then I know that we also talked about having people from the community come in and talk about, issues and things with everyone. And so that's basically how it got started. And I think a lot of people are really excited about it and having a voice. It's about educating people and giving voice to those who don't necessarily feel like they're heard or, even seen. So
Was that a blind joke?
Not exactly, but sort of pun intended, because it's really true. And even in just our language, we use a lot of visual language today.
Man.
We are off to a good start,
She
baby.
is eloquent today. So am I.
Today is a very good brain date.
It is.
Just jokes. So
we always record podcasts on Mondays, and maybe we ought to
rethink
that.
Yeah, but part of it is, that's what it's about, and just giving voice to, people who don't necessarily feel like they have a voice in certain things, as far as, talking about transportation. And that's one of the big hurdles for folks, as far as being blind and low vision, is transportation and getting people to the things. But talking about funny stuff, like walking out of your house with your dress inside out or whatever, and just funny things that happen, and telling stories. And, and Mark Ivy has really fun stories that he tells about his daughter. And also part of what I think about having a podcast platform, it's allowing, people who are curious to listen and learn, and then also be less afraid is not really the right word, because, one thing that changes for all of us over time, no matter who you are, is your eyesight, is our vision. And I think there's a lot of fear involved with that for people, like, oh, what would happen if I lost my sight? I wouldn't be able to live a normal life. And that isn't true. That's what we do here at New View is, all about keeping people living independently and, having the assisted technology program. And so it's also educating people about what we do here too. But
that's a lot of what I use when I'm talking about, hey, why should you make your website accessible? Is that we always talk about, at some point in your life, you are bound to have a disability, whether it's, for the rest of your life, it's long-term, or it's just short-term. Hey, maybe you broke your arm and it happens to be the arm that you would ordinarily use a mouse with. Well, what are you going to do now? Is a website keyboard accessible, and are you able to, navigate it now using a keyboard with the one hand that you have? And so I always use examples like that, because then it makes it applicable for everyone, not just someone that they would see that has like a severe disability that's long term. And so it's kind of the same thing with having a podcast about people who are blind or have low vision, is that, as you age, one of the first things that is bound to go is your eyesight. Or, you could wake up tomorrow, perish the thought, but you could wake up tomorrow and start to lose your eyesight. It's happened to people here at New View. And so what might that be like? And we have a lot of people, I've had a lot of people in my life that have said, I could not even fathom what it is like to be you. I would not be able to function if I lost my eyesight. And it's like, well, you could, you just have to learn how. But I understand why it's kind of unfathomable, because I do the same thing, when I see people dealing with other things in their lives, and I'm like, oh man, I don't even know what it would be like to be you. And it sounds absolutely terrifying to me. So,
and that is the thing to me, it's also about kind of normalizing it. The more we talk about it, the more we hang out with each other, people are just people. And that's why, in the art stuff that we do here, I want us to try everything, because, a lot of the thing, I wouldn't have anyone do stuff that you can't do, but it's just modifying things. Like, you can still paint a painting. We just may Velcro things to the table so everyone knows where they are, to give everyone confidence that they can still do stuff. And then just letting people know that if you lose your eyesight, that's fine. It's an adjustment for sure, but you can still live independently. You can still do art. You can still enjoy all the things. It just will look a little different. And I think one of my things is, by having a podcast platform, it kind of lets people know all of these things are possible and helps them kind of get their toes wet into the BLV world without having to, show up at a low vision clinic to talk to somebody or something, if that makes any sense. And it's just, podcasts are a really great platform to talk about all of this. And then too, people can still do Legos. You can do video games and all of these things that most people or many people who are even here at Newview, in either like the clinic or in the MOVE program, didn't even think certain things were possible. Like we have, we partner with Oklahoma Dance Foundation and we have dance classes. And everything that we do is like geared towards people who are blind and low vision, but sighted people are welcome to come. We want everyone to come and just kind of hang out and be a part of get community involvement so that people can be less apprehensive of something changing in their own life and then just be more aware of what it, looks like for someone who's blind or low vision.
Yeah, when you first approached me about the podcast, I remember you just kind of came up to me and you were like, hey, can you show up on a Saturday and be a part of this podcast workshop? And I was like, sure. And we hadn't done very many things together at that point. I had no idea what to expect, but I am just a yes man. Everyone will learn this from me. But I say yes to pretty much anything. And so I just was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm getting into. And honestly thought before the workshop started that I was going to dip out. I was like, I don't know what to expect. What did I get myself into? But coming and just hearing everybody's ideas and, what we wanted to see from it, what your vision was for the podcast, I was all in at that point. And I think it's really great to be able to show people that you can live I hate to use the word normal, but I will. You can live a normal life. You can live an empowered, independent life and do things, have hobbies that you wouldn't think that you could still have. Do all the things that you were doing, if you had lost your sight later in life before you lost your sight, or, even a lot of people who are blind since birth don't even know that they can have these hobbies.
Right.
But also to talk about the hard things too, I think it's good to have a mix of both. So I was not anticipating being the host of this podcast.
Well, welcome.
I know. Spoilers to everyone. This was not the plan. But now that I get to, it's just really cool to be able to, first of all, talk about those hard things and have those serious times, but also to tell the fun stories, to talk about hobbies, talk about, how people cook and they still have a love of cooking. It's not something they have to do. That's me. I feel like I have to do it, but I still can, but it ain't fun to me. Or, like you said, you can still play video games. You can still build Lego. And so to have episodes like that, where we talk about the more lighthearted, the fun things, just to have space for all of that, which I think is so important, and to raise awareness so that everybody knows. And then just to figure out, just how to get it out to more people. But so I think at first I was skeptical of a podcast because I didn't know where it would go and what would it be like. And I thought, man, is this going to be super cheesy and silly? But then it wound up being something far more exciting than I ever thought it would be at first. So kudos to you for having the idea. I know. It's my one nice thing I'll say to you for
thanks,
the week.
Hannah. I will take it. But that's the thing. You first have to have the conversation. And that's why I like to try to talk to everybody to kind of figure out, what their passions are, what they're interested in. And then it's kind of like I tell people it's dangerous to know me because I'm like, hey, how would you feel about teaching a music class? Or how would you like to feel about being a model in a, sculpture, whatever. So, but that's what is really exciting. And then as the more stories we tell of of ourselves and each other and just really get to know each other more, I think that's really what builds really great community. And that's part of the goal that this podcast can represent. So.
Yeah, it's cool a lot of what I see happening too with the podcast is just to have people on and give them space to tell their stories. So I love to learn people's stories. I love to share my story. I feel like it's really important. And so that's one of the things that I'm most excited about, is to get to, learn about other people at New View, but even outside New View, other people in the community, and get to talk with them and learn about their stories, because everybody has something to add, something that you can learn from. I think, they have different experience. And so it's cool to get to learn about all these people. And it's something new for me too, because like I said, I did not envision myself being the permanent host of the podcast. I'm still learning. So like,
we're all learning.
Having 4 people in the room is much easier than having just one other person, which you would think it would be kind of the opposite, but to carry on a conversation with just one other person and get their story out of them, or, keep the conversation flowing, is something that I am still learning how to do, really. And I'm a talker. Everybody will
hey.
Yeah, everybody will tell you I can never hush. But when it's something like a podcast, it's like, oh dear, how do you keep it flowing? But I think that's the really cool thing too about the podcast, is that not only do we get to share our stories, not only do we get to raise awareness, normalize what we live with from day to day as blind people or people with low vision, but I get to learn something new, which is really cool. I'm always down to learn new things, to have new experiences. And so I'm really excited. It's also really good for me because I have to, in my position at New View, advocate for New View or different things that we're trying to get done, funds that we're trying to get, different things like that. And so it helps me be able to converse better with other people, learn how to ask questions, different things like that. So honestly, it has really just been nothing but good for me. So I think it's awesome. I do wonder though, so how did you even get started at New View? Why New View for you?
Well, good question.
I have those.
Well, previous to this job, I was a teaching artist for Arts Council of Oklahoma City, and I went into different memory care and assisted living facilities and taught art. And it was one of those things as well where we did actual art, watercolor, acrylic, clay, pen and ink, and all of that stuff. And it was never dumbed down. It was modified to work with, older folks who either had, low vision or had Alzheimer's, or maybe they had neuropathy and things. So I really paid attention to what worked for people. But most people, it was interesting. Most people thought, especially when working with those who were in memory care, like, oh, you did those drawings for them. And it's like, well, no, they did them themselves. And so it's really about just kind of being a cheerleader and getting people started. And that's what I really, really love. Art is good for everyone, even if you don't know it. And art is the arts in general, whether it's, visual art, sculpture, which is also visual art, but, music, theater, any of that, doing voiceover acting, all of that stuff. And I think that, the arts touch us in a way, like music touches in a way that other things can't. Plus it gets us out of our head and helps us get into our bodies, and really just kind of, it's about the process and that's not necessarily the end product. And so this was, though, however, I really loved it. And I learned so much about, people. And even though some days it was tough because, not everyone can do it, because you go into memory care and someone who has Alzheimer's may scream in your face and you're like, wow, and it's hard. You see people diminish, versus, with kids, you see them grow and expand, but people still really loved doing the art and looked forward to it we went every 2 weeks, and they even got better, and people, it really helped people understand that, wow, the arts really have value. They really do. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a long-winded, strange answer. However, I was just part-time and I was working on my house. And then I was like, well, this was great for me while I was working on my house. Mm-hmm. But now I have to be able to pay to live in my house. So, and I happened to know Lauren Branch, and we were having lunch one day, and she was like, "Hey, Leigh," because I was telling her I really needed to find a job, and I didn't want to just find anything.
Right.
And she was like, "Hey, we have this program, coordinator position," and I'm like, "Well, you should apply for it." And I'm like, "Well, okay." And then too, what I did first, I did contract work, where I came and did art classes with some of the campers, and I talked to Mindy Stevenson and Ronita and just talked about all the things that, we could do art wise, and then, did some teaching so they can kind of see what I was about and like. And then, so that's kind of how I got in the door. And then I was hired for the position. So, which has been very exciting, because I just have kind of talked to people here at class and talked to people at Douglas and kind of tried to figure out, what people want to do, what their interests are, and then just try to, and just starting all of the things. And I think this year is very exciting because some things that have been taking a year and a half or more in the process are finally kind of coming together, like the music room and all of these where we're going to get to have even more fun, interesting classes that we offer for everyone. I mean, and it's just getting community involvement. Like all of the classes that we're offering are geared toward people who are blind and low vision, but they're open to everyone, and that's the fun in it. You just come and hang out and laugh. And I'm talking about the dance classes right now, which is a ton of fun. And then we have guest artists come in, and I think I'm kind of getting off topic, but that's how I ended up coming here.
Yeah. So you already had to make modifications doing what you were doing with people who had kind of more, Alzheimer's or different memory issues, and then came and did it for the kids at camps, which we do camps for kids every summer where they get to experience new things that maybe they haven't gotten to experience before, but also meet other people who are dealing with the same things that they're dealing with, and it's a fun time. So doing little art projects for them, and then that's how you got your foot in the door to come here.
Right.
And I really feel like since you got here, have kind of just taken it by storm and really kind of, grew it to more than probably what they ever imagined, I would think.
Right.
So to just, it wasn't just, hey, we're working with clay, which is fun. But I mean, really, I feel like it has just grown exponentially to something really neat, to where we don't just have visual art, like you were saying. We're doing dance, we're doing music, which we're really excited about. Yeah. We have some really cool stuff in store for this year, I think.
And like Lego night. Yeah, and that's the thing. We should try it all. That's why, it's kind of like the enrichment lab kind of idea where we're always experimenting and innovating to try different things. It's just so exciting because I want everyone to be able to experience as much as they can. And this really, to me, is what life is about. It's about getting together and experiencing things and feeling joy and happy and just really getting the good stuff out of life. You
don't realize like a lot of people who are blind or who have low vision, they don't get out much, and they don't do a lot outside of being at home or even, coming to work if they happen to have a job. And so it's really important to give them activities to be able to come to. Yeah. It's important to, like we talked about earlier, to show them that there's more to life. There's more things that you can do. You don't have to sit at home and, just stay at home all day, be cooped up in the house.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's the awesome thing about New View is we teach you how to get out of your house and, be able to be independent. But we also show you that, hey, here's some things, some ways that you can get involved. You can come to dance class and meet other people and, you can come to the guest artist and play with glass and, you can come to a Lego night. So I think, of course, employment, which is a lot of what we do at New View, is important. Of course, teaching you how to live independently is super important, for you to be able to live and survive. But I think it's not a stretch to say that enrichment is equally as important because it helps you even with your mental health. Because when you're sitting around at home and you're doing nothing, that kind of shortens your life right there. The mortality rate is far greater when you're just sitting at home doing nothing, being sedentary and just not doing anything.
Yeah, and it can be very lonely too.
Yeah, it does get very lonely. So to be able to come to these things, to meet people who are dealing with the same things you are, also, hopefully you're making friends and
having fun and like laughing. And it's just a good reminder that even as adults, it's important to play.
Yes.
And
I
just
agree.
have fun and laughter, helps you live longer. And it's just, all of these things are just a reminder, this is living. You can exist and, but that's not living. You really want to live.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I think a lot of what happens is they're existing, but they're not living. And I think that is an important distinction, but you're right. I think I play more than I'm serious. Anybody who knows me can probably attest.
Right.
My bosses probably say, I wish you were serious more, but I can't help it. I just have joy even in the little things. I love life. And it's because I have been shown that there are things you can do. You don't just have to sit and feel sorry for yourself and not be able to do anything. And so fortunately for me, I had parents that showed me that, and they'd show me that even in ways that people would not expect. I mean, my dad got me out in the yard and threw a football with me and said catch, and I did not catch. My nose caught that football. But he wanted me to do what all the other kids did. And so we would go outside and we would play catch, or I would get on a bicycle and my sister had a horn on her bike and she'd ride in front and honk her horn and I'd follow right behind.
Hey. Well, and that's another thing. That's a good segue into like adaptive sports.
Yeah.
I mean, there's beep baseball, which is super impressive. And then even, like in goal ball. And then I happen to love Showdown because we have a Showdown table here, and it's a great introduction to people to adaptive sports without having to sacrifice your body or run or anything like that. And that also is really fun and exhilarating. If anyone has been in the building when John and Mark Iver and even Hannah are playing Showdown, it gets very heated and raucous.
It does.
Which is so fun. And then it keeps you coming back, and and hopefully we'll have some audio darts too. Be playing with too once we figure out the issues.
How to not throw darts in the wall.
Right.
We're sorry, Lauren.
But we do have the stuff to put on the wall to keep darts from sticking.
We're trying to be proactive.
Yeah.
We're trying not to destroy the building.
We really do try to think ahead sometimes.
We do.
So,
But yeah, that's why the podcast is super great, because then our listeners, all 5 of them.
Hello.
I'm just kidding.
15.
Tell your friends. 15. You get to learn about these things if you didn't already know about them. And that's what we want to see happen. We want to bring more people into these enrichment activities. We don't want it to just be the people we see every day at New View, though we love them.
Yes.
But we want it to become bigger than, we could have even ever imagined, because we're just wanting everybody to be able to be involved and to have fun and to just get to play a little. It's fun. There's always more things that, we think of to do. Sometimes Leigh gets in trouble because she thinks of too many things.
Right. Me and my big ideas.
Yeah, okay. She has big ideas. But that's what's great, though. And I think, the cool thing is the more that you get to learn what people like, or the more that you see how certain projects are working or not working, that just opens it up to you think of more things that we can do.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface on what we can do with all the art things that we're doing, there's always more. I feel like there's always a way to modify something to make it accessible. And so that's the fun thing to learn too, is it keeps your mind active. You have to learn how to be innovative and to keep thinking, how might this work for someone who is blind?
Totally. And that's been something that's been really fun for me too, trying to figure out different ways of doing things and then talking about it with people. And then too, another thing as far as enrichment's concerned, just talking about, we also still do like service projects because, just because someone's blind or low vision doesn't mean they don't want to volunteer and help other people too. And that is something, like doing the Stuffing the Animals for Beautiful Dream Society, and then also doing stuff at the food bank and things like that's also enriching in a different way. But I do really love figuring out new ways of doing things, and anyone who knows me can, it's like, that's why I was like, squirrel, what squirrel? We're working on this squirrel,
Yes.
So, but that's one of the things I love about it, and that it's a definite collaboration with everyone, because my goal is to start programming and then hand it off to everyone else and then keep it going. Then everyone can make it their own. And whatever that looks like, it might look slightly different each year depending on who's doing what. And that's what's also exciting to me, and just getting more people involved. And I just really am having fun.
I'm glad.
Hannah?
Y'all, she's so chill. She says, I'm having fun. She means it.
I do mean it. I mean,
she's just not boisterous and vivacious. She's groovy and chill.
Right? Can you dig it? No. I mean, and I just really am grateful to be in a place where we can really kind of workshop things and figure out ways of doing stuff differently, and that sometimes it's not going to really work out. You're going to go, well, wow, that is not accessible at all. Or, wow, this is much cooler than I thought. When we were looking at the Victrola, it's like, dude, thinking we're going to put bump dots on it. And it's like, it has switches and clicking knobs. Fantastic.
Right.
So,
There's nothing that's touch screen to where you would have to have a bump dot, something tactile that would show you what button you needed to push. Because a lot of times when all the buttons are the same, you need something tactile to let you be able to distinguish between those buttons. But the cool thing about these record players that we got is that they are all analog. So they have a switch that you use to turn it on. And then there's a knob, and the knob clicks every time you turn it to a new position. So you know exactly what you're turning it to. And so it wound up being quite accessible all on its own, which is really exciting. That makes my job a lot easier.
Yeah. And then for those of you who don't know, that this is part of our music room, that, the music lab, where we actually have two listening stations where you can come and listen to vinyl, CDs, cassettes, but that probably won't be as big of a draw, but, so which is very exciting. And
yeah, so there's a lot of cool things in store. We're always thinking of new things to do. I say just by the way, I should have said this at first. I kind of involved myself with enrichment by accident when Leigh brought up the music room one day, and she was like, hey, I know you do music things. What about helping teach a music course? And I was like, well, maybe. What did you have in mind? And she was like, well, they're thinking about doing digital recording. And I was like, oh dear, that could present some accessibility challenges. And I had come from an accessibility background here at Newview. So that's kind of how I fit in, because I was like, I know some things about digital recording and how to make it accessible.
That's why I asked you.
It's true. And so that's how I kind of got involved with enrichment, but then thought about some other ways in which to make the music room more accessible, and then started talking about Lego and how we could accessibly build Lego. And
yes.
So all the things, which that's what Leigh is good at, is just pulling people into the fold. And then I just decided, hey, I like all the things, so I'm just going to involve myself even more. And now she probably wishes that I would stop involving myself.
You all right.
But so we have fun together, just learning how to be more innovative, to find more things for people to do, to teach people some new hobbies. And that's all because of our enrichment program, which is really cool. That New View just allows us space to play and space to let other people learn that there is life outside work. There is life outside your apartment. Sorry, Avenue Q.
Hey, no, that's awesome. And it's true. And it's like meeting people where they are, you know, and I always tell people too, it's like, what are your interests? What do you like? And it's like, if you want to try wood burnishing, let's give it a whirl. So that's why we did set up the table outside so we didn't burn anything down, just depending on what someone's visual acuity is like, hey, let's see if we can try it. And that's the thing is trying it all and just, you know, and that there's joy in that, the unknown of like figuring things out, which is very exciting. And so
it's true. That's what I love. I love the unknown and just how can we make this work? It's something that I've always had to do, even, you know, going to a college where they had never had a blind person major in music. And I had to figure out how I was going to major in music because they had no idea. I was the expert in the room, which was terrifying at first. But then the more that we did it and the more classes I took and the more innovative we had to be, the more that I learned that I loved it. So it's cool that we have a chance to do those same things here. Different subjects sometimes, you know, sometimes it's visual art, sometimes it's Lego, but definitely cool to have the ability to do that. And I think it's awesome that that's what you get to do every day. It's cool that you had the idea for the podcast in the first place. Otherwise, we would not be sitting in this very room at this very moment.
Well, it's very exciting to be here. And then that's also the thing that the podcast can reach people and like, look, people are having fun doing different kinds of things and then get them in the door.
Get them in the door.
Get them in the door.
Oh, goodness. Well, y'all, I'm glad you're here with us.
Yes.
We apologize that it's a Monday and that we're who we are today. But I hope that you did learn something, that you got something out of this episode. I hope that it encourages you to be more involved with our enrichment opportunities here at New View. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to learn more. We are glad that you listened today. Remember, everybody has blind spots, so keep an open mind. We'll see you next time.
All right, bye-bye.
This podcast is brought to you by Possibilities, Inc. Thank you for listening.
And